Hey, it's Kate from Pre-Nursing Smarter. Let's do a TEAS science practice test together. In case you haven't seen already, you can take it right now on my website. Just scroll here. Go ahead and take it. I'll have timestamps in the description box for each of these questions. Now let's do this TEAS science practice test. Question number 1. Where is the primary site of carbohydrate absorption? A, mouth, B, stomach, C, duodenum, D, jejunum. Where is the primary site of carbohydrate absorption? The answer is D, jejunum. Nutrients from digested macromolecules like lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins are absorbed in the jejunum, which is the second part of the small intestine. The mouth is the primary site of carbohydrate digestion, but not absorption. The stomach is also a main site of digestion. And the duodenum is the first part of the small intestine after the stomach, and that's also a site of digestion as well. Question number 2. Which of the following are found in the thoracic cavity? Liver, heart, lungs, or thymus? This is a multiple choice option. There's going to be more than one answer. Which of the following are found in the thoracic cavity? So the answers here are the heart, lungs, and thymus. These are all in your chest, which is largely your thoracic cavity. The liver is in your abdominal cavity. Question number 3. Which chamber of the heart pumps blood into the lungs? A, left ventricle, B, left atrium, C, right ventricle, D, right atrium. Which chamber of the heart pumps blood into the lung? This is the right ventricle. We're talking about pumping, and ventricles do the pumping. Atriums are collecting. They are where blood is received from either the body or the lungs. And the ventricles are the more muscular sections of the heart that pump either to the body or to the lungs. The left ventricle pumps oxygenated blood from the heart to the body. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. The right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and the right atrium collects and receives deoxygenated blood from the body. Question 4. Which of the following is not an example of a nonspecific defense? We're talking about the immune system here. A, fever, B, skin, C, T cells, D, macrophages. Which of the following is not an example of a nonspecific defense? The answer is C, T cells. T cells are very specific. They're a learned response to a specific infectious agent. Fever, that is nonspecific. You can have a fever if you have a cold, the flu. Skin, that is nonspecific as well. Skin's going to try its best to protect you from all sorts of bacteria, fungal infections, keeping the outside environment out of your body. And macrophages, they typically eat things that are foreign or that should be eaten, but they're not specific to a particular infection. Question 5. In RNA, which nucleotide pairs with adenine? A, cytosine, D, guanine, C, thymine, D, uracil. In RNA, which nucleotide pairs with adenine? The answer is D, uracil. In DNA, A pairs with T, thymine. However, in RNA, there is no thymine, so A, adenine, has to pair with U, uracil. C and G are always paired together in both DNA and RNA. Question 6. Which of the following are functions of the kidney? This is a multiple select option. Filter blood of salt, nutrients, water, and waste. Release cortisol. Store urine, waste from the digestive system from protein breakdown. Maintain water homeostasis. Which of the following are functions of the kidney? The answers are filter blood of salt, nutrients, water, and waste, and maintain water homeostasis. Cortisol release happens very close to the kidneys. Cortisol is released by the adrenal glands that are on top of the kidneys, so it's very close, but there is a better answer here. And the kidneys do not store urine. That is the function of the urinary bladder. Which of the following has an acidic pH? This is a multiple select answer option as well. Urine, blood, salt water, lemon juice. Which of the following has an acidic pH? The answers are urine and lemon juice. Blood is slightly basic. In fact, the medulla oblongata in your brain helps monitor how acidic your blood can get, which will help regulate oxygenation and your breathing. And then salt water is also slightly basic as well. Which structure is the main filtration unit of the kidney? A. Nephron, B. Glomerulus, C. Tubule, or D. Bowman's capsule. Which structure is the main filtration unit of the kidney? This is the nephron. The nephron is the main filtration unit of the kidney through lots of little different tubules and specific areas of the nephron. The glomerulus is part of the nephron, and the tubule is as well. Bowman's capsule is another part of the nephron. All of these are parts of the nephron, and the nephron is the main filtration unit made up of all these smaller pieces that oversees filtration in the kidneys. Question 9. Which of the following bones is part of the axial skeleton? A. Cranium, B. Phalanges, C. Scapula, or D. Tibia? Which of the following bones is part of the axial skeleton? The answer is A. Cranium. On the TEAS science section, you will probably have at least one question that will ask you about either the axial or the appendicular skeletal system and identifying bones. The axial skeleton is the part that's not about movement. The axial skeleton is the center of your body. That's all about structure and protection. So your cranium, that's your skull. So that is definitely part of your axial skeleton. Your phalanges are your fingers and your toes. That is part of the appendicular skeleton. Scapula is involved in movement of your shoulder. That is appendicular. And tibia, that's the leg bone. So that is also a big part of movement. Question 10. Which of the following best describes a group of tissues working together? A. Organelle, B. Organ, C. Organ system, or D. Cell? Which of the following best describes a group of tissues working together? The answer is B. Organ. This is the hierarchy in the body. We're going to go from smallest to largest here, which you might be directly asked about on the TEAS science section. Organelles working together form a cell. Groups of cells working together form tissues. Groups of tissues working together form organs. And group of organs working together form organ systems. Question 11. Which of the following infectious diseases can be caused by bacteria? This is a multiple select answer, so there's more than one correct answer. Varicella, cholera, tuberculosis, influenza. Which of the following infectious diseases can be caused by bacteria? The answers here are cholera and tuberculosis. These are both bacterial infections. Varicella is also chickenpox, and that is a virus. Influenza, the flu, is a virus as well. On the TEAS science section, you may be asked about different infectious or communicable diseases that can be caused by viral infection, bacterial infection, fungal infection, protozoa, or animal infection, which would be parasitic worms. These are really great for flashcards to help you study for the TEAS science test. I have these already done for you in my full program. You want to know about measles, mumps, HIV, those are all viral infections. You might also want to know that bacteria, there's harmful bacteria and good bacteria. You will also want to know about non-infectious diseases that can't be passed from person to person. For the TEAS, these are very common conditions in the United States, like high blood pressure, which is also known as hypertension, cancer, asthma, and diabetes. These are ones you'll see as a healthcare provider very frequently. Question 12. Where is vitamin B12 absorbed? A. Large intestine, B. Ileum, C. Stomach, D. Duodenum. Where is vitamin B12 absorbed? We already talked about how a lot of nutrients from macromolecules are absorbed in the jejunum. Vitamin B12 is an important exception. It is absorbed in the ileum, which is the next part of the small intestine. The small intestine has the duodenum, the jejunum, the ileum. The duodenum is where digestion finishes up. You can remember that because both start with the D, duodenum and digestion. The ileum is a part of the small intestine, and that's where vitamin B12 is absorbed. That's an important exception to know for the TEAS. Question 13. Interphase occurs before which of the following stages? This is a multiple select option. We have meiosis prophase 1, mitosis prophase, mitosis telophase 1, meiosis prophase 2. Interphase occurs before which of the following stages? We have meiosis prophase 1 and mitosis prophase. Meiosis is the process of creating cells for sexual reproduction, and that results in 4 unique cells that will be used for sexual reproduction. And mitosis is the process of essentially cellular division, which results in 2 genetically identical cells. Before both of these stages, interphase occurs. Interphase is where DNA replicates, and that needs to happen before mitosis prophase and meiosis prophase 1. To have the cellular replication, DNA first needs to replicate. KCl, or potassium chloride, is an example of which type of bond? A covalent, B ionic, C polar covalent, or D hydrogen. KCl is an example of which type of bond? The answer is B ionic. You will get a periodic table on the TEAS, and you do need to understand trends of the periodic table for the TEAS science section. Ionic bonds are generally formed between elements on the left side with elements from the right side of the periodic table. Covalent bonds are usually clustered around carbon. We have the C repeating there, covalent clustered around carbon. Polar covalent is a type of covalent bond. Water is a polar covalent bond, and then this isn't a hydrogen bond. Really understanding what is ionic, covalent, and polar covalent for TEAS science test questions is great skill. Question 15. What is the typical dihybrid ratio? A, 3:1, B, 9:3, 2:1, C, 9:3 to 3:1, D, 1:3. What is the typical dihybrid ratio? Dihybrid ratio refers to Punnett square crosses, so this is all about genetics. I know a lot of people hate Punnett squares. Learning these ratios and memorizing them is great to know for TEAS science test questions. The typical dihybrid ratio is 9:3 to 3:1. That is the outcome of a dihybrid cross. Di stands for 2, so that's with 2 traits, like say hair color and eye color. 3:1 is the typical ratio for the monohybrid cross, so that would just be, say, hair color. 9:3 to 2:1, that's not a typical ratio, and 1:3, that's not a typical ratio. If you needed to start anywhere, memorize that this is the typical dihybrid ratio. Question 16. Which of the following have a demonstrated causal relationship with hypertension? This is a multi-select question. Stress, lack of exercise, smoking, high salt diet. The answers are all of them. Let me select that. All of them. Stress, lack of exercise, smoking, and a high salt diet can all cause or contribute to hypertension, which is high blood pressure. And this is a non-communicable disease that we talked about earlier. That's great to know for the TEAS science test, because as a healthcare provider, you will very likely have patients who are experiencing hypertension and need to manage it. Question 17. Where does digestion of carbohydrate begin? A, stomach, D, duodenum, C, mouth, D, large intestine. Where does digestion of carbohydrate begin? We already talked about the absorption of carbohydrate. The primary site of where carbohydrate digestion begins is in the mouth with chewing, which is physically breaking down the carbohydrate, and then salivary amylase, which is chemically beginning to break down the carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are made of sugar. I don't know if you've ever done this experiment where you take a piece of bread, for example, maybe a saltine, something that isn't very sweet, and you chew it for a while and have the mechanical digestion work through it, give salivary amylase a time to digest, and it should start tasting sweeter in your mouth. That is showing that those carbohydrates are being broken down into their sugars. So carbohydrate digestion begins in the mouth. Question 18. Which gland makes an oil that moisturizes skin? A, sebaceous, B, sudoriferous, sorry, I never can say that right, C, constrictive, or D, follicle. Which gland makes an oil that moisturizes the skin? This is A, sebaceous. This is sebum. These glands are all about skin moisturization. Option B is a sweat gland. There's kind of the word odor in there a little bit. That's how I remember it. It doesn't exactly spell out odor, but it kind of looks like it does. Not everything's perfect here with how we remember stuff in the TEAS test. Constrictive, that more refers to how the skin can regulate temperature by constricting or dilating blood vessels in the skin to help either release or conserve heat from basically blood. And a follicle, that's where hair comes out in your skin. Your skin has a lot of hair follicles. Question 19. Mass divided by volume is equal to what? A, triple point, B, density, C, concentration, or D, dilution. Mass divided by volume is equal to what? The answer is density. All of these terms are great to know for the TEAS. It's a little complicated just for this video, but I do have full lessons for them in my TEAS prep program. These are all possible TEAS science chemistry questions you'll see when you take the exam. Mass divided by volume is density. It's a great formula to know right now. The triple point is when a substance exists as a solid, liquid, and a gas, and it's a process of both pressure and temperature. The triple point was emphasized on the previous version of the TEAS. I'm not sure it's as emphasized on the TEAS in 2024. However, it might show up on your TEAS science test. It might also be used as a question that isn't scored, so I wouldn't want you to panic about it. It's a great term to know that you might have forgotten from your chemistry classes that might show up on the TEAS science test. Concentration is how much solute there is in a solution, and dilution is adding more solvent to the solution to lower the concentration. Concentration and dilution will be on the TEAS for 2023, 2024, and I can't predict the future, but likely 2025, so it's great to know and get familiar with those terms and concepts. Question 20. Which of the following statements is true about an allergic reaction? A, an allergic reaction like hives or wheezing breath is the result of an overactive body system like the integumentary system and respiratory system. B, an allergic reaction is the function of overactive B cells in the body, which release various immunoglobulins. C, an allergic reaction is a function of overactive mast cells in the body, which are stimulated by immunoglobulin E. D, an allergic reaction involves proteins like histamine, keratin, and collagen. Which of the following statements is true about an allergic reaction? Fun fact, this is one of the most missed questions in my TEAS prep program. This is a question where several of the answers are almost right, so you need to read these answer options very carefully. The answer is C. An allergic reaction is a function of overactive mast cells in the body, which are stimulated by immunoglobulin E. Let's talk about why this is the answer, because A and D are the most commonly incorrect answers that I see. Answer option A is almost right. An allergic reaction like hives or wheezing is the result of overactive body systems. That is totally correct, but it's an overactive immune response with symptoms that are involving the integumentary and respiratory system. This is such a picky distinction. But an allergic reaction is an overactive immune response. That is the body system that is having the quote-unquote overreaction. It's expressing itself as symptoms like wheezing or hives. But there is a better answer because it's not a skin condition, it's an immune condition. It is not overactive B cells in the body. B cells are involved in the immune response, but those are not involved in the allergy response. It's immunoglobulin E that's all about allergies. Option D is also almost correct because an allergic reaction does involve proteins, specifically histamine, but does not involve keratin or collagen, which are structural proteins often in skin, hair, and nails. Really double check those answer options. This is why when you're taking the TEAS science test or any TEAS test, make sure you read your answer options and double check them because sometimes wrong answers are designed to look right, and there's just one word that can throw off the answer, and then there's a better answer option. I know it's rude, but that's just the nature of this test. Question 21. What is, I never can quite say that correctly, hydroxyapatite? A, a mixture of minerals like calcium and phosphorus that strengthen the collagen matrix of bone. D, the structural unit of bone that runs the length of the bone. C, the covering of bones at the point of articulation to prevent grinding, or D, the lightest portion of long bone and is concentrated at the ends. It is A, a mixture of minerals like calcium and phosphorus that strengthen the collagen matrix of bone. How I remember this, even though I can never quite pronounce it right, matrix and oxy both have the X in there. So strengthening the collagen matrix, you can max out the matrix with hydroxyapatite. Question 22. Which of the following options are true statements about water's boiling point? This is a multiple select answer option, so there's very likely more than one answer. Water's boiling point can change based on concentration. Water's boiling point cannot change. Water's boiling point can change based on altitude. Evaporation occurs at water's boiling point. Which of the following options are true statements about water's boiling point? Answers are water's boiling point can change based on altitude, and evaporation occurs at water's boiling point. Water's boiling point does not change based on concentration of water, but water's boiling point does change, and it changes based on altitude. Then evaporation, that's the steam or mist coming up that fogs up your glasses, say if you're cooking pasta, that does occur at water's boiling point. If you've ever gone camping in the mountains, for example, or you've been in the military, ready-made meals like MREs or dehydrated meals, the prep time can vary based on how high you are in altitude, and that's a factor of water's boiling point changing. Question 23. What is the end product of mitosis? A, 4 haploid daughter cells, B, 4 diploid daughter cells, C, 2 haploid daughter cells, D, 2 diploid daughter cells. What is the end product of mitosis? We talked a little bit about this already. Mitosis is cellular division, not sexual reproduction. It makes 2 cells, and they are genetically the same. These are 2 diploid cells. Diploid means that they have a full set of genetic information. Haploid is almost like half. Haploid means they have half the genetic information that they need. So 2 diploid daughter cells is the end product of mitosis, 2 identical copies of the cells with the full amount of genetic information. Question 24. Which is the largest part of the airway? A, alveoli, B, bronchi, C, bronchioles, D, trachea. Which is the largest part of the airway? The answer is D, trachea. That's the windpipe. As you go from your nose and mouth down through your throat and into your lungs, the airway gets smaller and smaller, ending in the alveoli, which are the grape-like sacs, which are the site of gas exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. The trachea, the windpipe, is the largest, and as air travels down into your lungs, it becomes warmer and more moisturized. Okay, last question here. In a reduction reaction, electrons are blank so that the end ion is more blank. A, lost and positive. B, gained and negative. C, lost and negative. D, gained and positive. In a reduction reaction, electrons are blank so that the end ion is more blank. You might remember this as oil rig. Oxygenation is losing electrons, and reduction is gaining electrons. So we're going to be gaining electrons, and electrons are negatively charged. If we get more of a negative, the answer is B. In a reduction reaction, electrons are gained so that the end ion is more negative. I hope this helped you. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm always here to help you along your pre-nursing and allied health journey. If you need more TEAS practice questions, you can always sign up for my free preview or my full TEAS prep program, where I have tons of practice questions, answer explanations, workbooks, and downloads in the full program to help you get the resources you need to succeed on the TEAS. Keep up the great work, and I'll catch up with you in my next video. Take care.